Hi, everyone, and welcome to Briefly Technical, the 2B1 podcast, where we talk about legal technology, digital marketing, cybersecurity, and the issues shaping modern law firms. And this is our very first episode. So I'm Araceli Parra, Director of Growth and Digital Strategy here at 2B1 Inc. And with me is Paolo Broggi, the founder of 2B1 Inc. At 2B1, we help law firms with legal technology, digital marketing, and cybersecurity. Through this podcast, we want to have practical and honest conversations about the technology that law firms depend on. For our first episode, we're talking about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Everyone's talking about that, right? The hackers are using AI like crazy, scammers are creating more convincing messages, and phishing emails are becoming harder to recognize. But no one's talking about the good guys. You know, we have AI too. Right, Paolo? How is AI helping us fight back?
Hi, my name is Paolo Broggi, and I've been with 2B1 for like 30 years. Yes, in this period of time, we've seen a lot of changes, and now with the AI taking over the world, basically, we have seen that the cybersecurity companies, they are using heavily AI to counter those AI attacks. So it is very fascinating how there is this catch-22 race to improve the security. Um, and we have a special guest today here that is from Acronis, and Acronis is the engine behind 2B1 Care. And we're going to introduce Mark Hammer, who can tell us even more about what Acronis will be doing or is doing or has been doing for the past several years since the invent of AI to improve the detections and response for the security field. Mark?
Very good. Thank you very much, Paolo, for the handoff. It's my pleasure to be with you here today and act as kind of a subject matter expert when it comes to AI and all things cybersecurity. And so we want to make sure that everybody knows that the good guys have AI too. Speaking specifically from the Acronis perspective, we have been using AI to fight scammers and bad actors since 2017. And so this is not a new technology. The good guys have been using it just as long, if not longer, than the bad guys. And so in the ever and never-ending race of who's better, who's faster, who's more dominant, just know that all the same tools, all the same, in fact, more people are on the good side than are on the bad side. And so I love the topic. I love the theme, especially in the legal industry. I think this is something that can get lost in the shuffle because obviously we're dealing with heavy weighted matter experts, and the job that they do is very important. The documents that they have, the intellectual property they protect is really substantial. And it's good to know that the good guys are on your side, and we're using all the tips and tricks that are out there and available. And I'm looking forward to talking about that today with you guys.
Thank you. Legal firms are especially targeted by hackers because they have a lot of confidential information that can be very useful in the hands of the bad actors. What are the specific tools that Acroni is using, for example,
Sure.
for preventing and the hackers to get into the system and maybe take over the documents, encrypting the documents, and so on?
Sure. So let's talk about heuristics or behavioral intelligence or machine learning. Those are all subsets of the AI mantra or the AI genre, if you will. And so most of us are familiar with old school antivirus solutions. When you went out and you bought your computer, it would come with Symantec or McAfee, and they had these signature databases that you constantly had to update 4 or 5 times a day. You'd have an automated download that had a little database that basically mapped signatures. And what the signature was, it would have the name of the file, the size of the file. Without getting too technical, you can take a file and hash it. It creates a unique key, and you can create that unique key and compare it to a list of known bad actors. And so if I were to download a file off the internet, I could quickly run a scan on it. We used to scan our computers, if you remember that. That scan is looking at the name, is looking at the file size, is looking at the date it was created or updated or modified, and it would hash it and it would compare it against its signature database. If it found the match, it would zap it, it would quarantine it, it would stop it, it would make sure that it couldn't modify or do anything harmful to your machine. However, that is a very reactive approach. The file's on your machine, you already downloaded it, or you clicked on the link, or you've stuck in the thumb drive, and so you're already later in the process, and the bad guys, to some extent, depending upon the payload and how it's being executed, they've already won. And so we started tracking heuristics, or which is behavior from a technology standpoint. So what ransomware typically does, it's crypto locking, meaning they take a file and they encrypt it. They hash it so that humans can't read it. Machines can read it. It's all zeros and ones to them, right? And so when you encrypt something, it's no longer readable to a human. And there's a certain process your computer goes through to encrypt a file. And so we know what that behavior looks like. And so without knowing the name of the file, the size of the file, or the hash of the file, we can still monitor the behavior of a file. And if like 5 files in a half a second all of a sudden get encrypted, and your natural stasis is, or your modus operandi, to borrow some legal terms, if that's not your normal mode of operation, then we're going to be able to raise our hand and say, that's not normal. Let's stop that process. Let's stop that file. Let's raise an alert. We'll send an email. We'll alert the IT guys. And we'll even go so far as to recover and unencrypt the files that were already encrypted and let you know that that has happened. And that can all happen automatically in the background. It's safe. It's sound. It's been going on for almost 10 years at this point. That is one of the ways modern cybersecurity is treating and going after the bad guys. It's no longer just about having the updated signature database. Don't get me wrong. We still have signatures. Why? Because they work and they're quick. Heuristics takes time, it takes more processing, but guess what? We have bigger hard drives, we have faster processors, we have more capability with our technology these days. We can have a little bit of increase in overhead and help stop the bad guys based off of the behavior of the application or the program that's trying to execute.
Okay, so for the non-technical people like myself, so it's less about recognizing just the threat, like list of threats and checking off a box. It's about recognizing the suspicious behavior.
I like to put the example of the security guard at the bank, right? If a guy walks in Phoenix, Arizona in the middle of July wearing a trench coat and a ski mask, his senses are going to be like, wait a minute, that is not normal behavior. What's going on here? Maybe we'll stop him before he goes too far into the bank, right?
Right.
Same thing with your technology and your software. We know what a clean program looks like, what execution is supposed to, how it's supposed to happen, and we can stop bad processes in their tracks without knowing the name of the file ahead of time.
So one part of this technology that really caught my attention is the ability to undo the damage automatically. And I think that's a big deal because, when this kind of stuff happens, when law firms have no security or no good security, it can shut them down for days, even, hours, days, to recover from that. So maybe we can talk about automatic recovery, how we're staying ahead.
Sure. There's a saying in the industry that you're only as safe or you're only as good as your last backup. And that's not just about the frequency of the backup or the type of backup. It's about also knowing that that backup works. Because typically if you want fast recovery, you keep something locally, maybe on a separate partition or on a network attached storage device in the same office. But increasingly people replicate to a second office or they replicate to a cloud. And so you can have multiple copies of the same data, right? And also for security reasons and for compliance reasons, especially in the legal field, a lot of times that data needs to be encrypted, not just at rest, but also in transit and when it's stored in a remote location. If you haven't tested that recovery to make sure that you know the encryption key, that you know how long it takes to copy, and you talked about automatic, some of this can be automated, but you also want to manually check things every once in a while too for your sanity. If you don't check it, then you don't know if it actually works. And so one of the benefits of working with a company like you guys with 2B1 Care is you guys can actually manage this service for your customers, give them that extra layer of security, almost like an umbrella policy from an insurance standpoint, to just know we got your back no matter if the problem happens at this office or that office, the receptionist complained, that this machine, the senior partner's machine, your paralegal's machine, it doesn't matter what machine it happens on. We have technology that can stop it in its tracks and recover it in real time. And if for some reason that doesn't work, maybe the bad guys are more sophisticated or the problem actually happened because somebody plugged in the wrong password and they have admin access and we need to actually do a recovery, we still have 3 or 4 different layers of defense we can get through to recover those files in a timely manner without having to have a really uncomfortable or a painful conversation about lost data or things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I actually have an example because this happened. We had a client that had like an old Windows 10 computer that was not patched anymore. Somebody
Okay.
just happened to turn it on, and then sure enough, somebody managed to get in. and then they managed to encrypt everything. So luckily for the clients, we had a very good backup that was built like a few hours earlier, and then it
Yep.
did take a little bit of time because it was in the cloud. But
Sure.
within basically a day or two, we were able to like bring them back and then operational again. But again, it's a big puzzle, and all the pieces of the puzzle have to be put into place, including patching all computers. And if computer is not patchable anymore, it should not be on your business on office.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just the patching. So there's a lot of entry points that hackers can come in through, right? And the good thing we covered the ransomware thing, because I know that a lot of attorneys already think like once a file's been touched, it's like it's done deal. But you guys covered and showed that we can recover, like you said, good backup.
Yep.
So what about phishing emails? Because I do know we've heard
Sure.
some stories here with our clients that also have the phishing emails. AI is making sure that it doesn't have bad spelling and things like that anymore, so the
Yeah.
hackers actually can
So
sound like a normal person. So how are we handling that?
yeah, this is, it used to be almost cliche that, the bad guys were sending emails that were just ridiculous. The classic Nigerian print story, right?
Yes.
With
Right.
misspelled words and links that go to websites that are obviously not the intended target, correct?
Right.
Well, don't get me wrong, those lowbrow phishing schemes, and phishing is when I send out a harmful email that doesn't have good intentions, right?
Right.
Those emails still happen, but most email filters, most humans, we're smart enough. Technology has been around. Email has been mainstream in America and in Europe for about 30 years now, and so everybody knows, hey, I shouldn't click on that email. Or most people, I shouldn't say everyone. There's always that one person, right?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
what AI has done is AI has done a really good job at mimicking natural language patterns, right? And so the misspelled words are now gone. Now emails are showing up clean and professional and formatted in such a way that it looks exactly like your Bank of America rep sending you an email. The template looks exactly the same. The link that you see on the screen may say bankofamerica.com/account, but in the background, it's still going to some other malicious site where either the Bank of America is misspelled or it's some, just wrong website. But Mimic will still feel something financial, right? And so what the AI is doing is the AI is also smart enough to know speech patterns. It's also smart enough to know where the email came from. And so we talk about where the email came from, we talk about how it got to you, and we talk about what the content actually looks like. AI knows and is smart enough to say, wait a minute, this person would never ask me to do that. Like, for example, if the email is all of a sudden, if there's an urgent request, I need you to, change the payment details. Instead of sending the deposit or the settlement here, send it to this bank instead. That AI is smart enough to know that that's not a normal request and it can be flagged as suspicious. And then there's also another aspect. It isn't just technology. Human beings also need to be trained to verify some of this information through a secondary source, whether that's a text message, a phone call, or if you have a personal email address instead of a business email address. Excuse me, because business email compromise is today's biggest threat. It's the entry point where most of the bad links come through, most of the bad files come from an email. And you need to have the AI protection, you need to have the traditional protection, and there's something called security awareness training, where we can put you through some simulations, send you fake emails and say, can you tell what is good and what is bad, what's a legitimate email, what should be followed up on. We can train the humans what this needs to look like as well. Even though the blatantly obvious, misformed, misspelled words, ugly square box emails, instead of saying Google, it says GOO1E.com. That stuff, don't get me wrong, those emails still happen, but their AI is really smart and makes it more difficult to find them.
Ah, interesting. So it looks at everything, looks at the
It does.
sender, the links, and where the message came from.
Mhm.
All
Yeah,
right.
so there's a
Awesome.
reputation score, right? So when you send an
Mhm.
email, in the background, your spam filter or your email security provider has these metrics, these hidden numbers, and it scores the email based off of where it came from, the frequency, how many other emails were sent out at the same time. And it does a really good job of fighting that and stripping out the spam and stopping the malicious links from coming through.
One of these parameters is, how young is a new website?
Yep.
Because, hackers, they have to create constantly new website because the old one gets shut down. So one of the parameters that these scanners are doing is if there is a link, it's going to ask how old is this link has been created, the domain itself. And then if it's like less than a week or so, it's there is a higher possibility that there is a problem with it.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. That's a good one. That's a good one to know.
Uh,
So, what happens if a message comes from a real email account that has been compromised?
So a couple things can happen. Even in the instance of a real email account where there's known history, you can also understand the speech patterns. Now, don't get me wrong, AI can get pretty sophisticated and mimic a lot of speech patterns, but this is
Hmm.
where it comes down to the human being also being a part of the process with security awareness training. If somebody's asking you to payment details or asking you for the password to a document, and if it doesn't feel right, then you need to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, did you send me this email asking me for the password to this secure document? Or the payment details, we already have those on file. Are you really requesting me to change the payment details? Because those things can happen. Look, I have had my Twitter account got taken over. To this day, I still don't know exactly what happened. And so there was a bunch of stuff. Somehow my Twitter account got hacked. And it took me a couple weeks to get to the bottom of that situation. And there were tweets going out from my personal account. There's no way would have ever come from me, right?
Uh-huh.
And so you can have technology to track speech patterns. Well, Mark talks this way. His conversations are usually about these topics, this length of an email, and this type of language. You can train your email security programs to get to that level of granularity. And so that if something shows up out of character, especially if there's all of a sudden a big influx of outbound emails from the same account to everybody with the same, that can, we talked about that score on the background. Quantity and frequency can also dictate if all of a sudden the Mark Hammer account is sending out 10,000 emails an hour, something's probably going on there, and we should probably stop it and not deliver it until we have further verification.
So what happens after the system notices something suspicious? Does email get blocked completely, or does the user receive some kind of warning?
So
How does
you
that
have
work?
some configuration controls and sensitivity alignment in your industry. Most of the time, if it's verifiable spam or malicious, you're never going to see it. However, you can set up some quarantine rules where if we're not 100% sure, maybe we're only 90% sure, that can go to kind of a quarantined inbox, and then you can look at that separately, maybe through a web portal, and view the attachment ahead of time, or trace the link, or read the contents of the text and make a determination. Should I deliver this to the inbox, or no, we're going to quarantine it, we're going to spam it, we're going to block it for the rest of the organization.
Oh, okay. So now that I have a better understanding what this technology is doing, let's bring it back really briefly to 2B1 Care. I have a question for Paolo now. So we're powered by Acronis. So how does this protection look like for one of our law firm clients, like behind the scenes?
So we have like a one portal where we log in, and then in that we have all the security features available. Very, very nice and very organized. For the security, email security, there is a special portal where we can connect. We can see the number of emails that be in transit through the system. We can see the total amount of emails. Out of those total amount of emails, how many were spam, how many contain malware. And then for the one that we can see that had malware, we can actually click and view the email as a picture. So all the links are unavailable to be clicked on, but we can see the text, that we can see the pictures and any detail of the emails. And then from there, we can see, yes, this actually is a malicious email. Once in a blue moon, there is a email that gets caught by the filters. So we can release that email, and also we can whitelist a specific email address. So all future email coming from that user is going to be okay. Um, we have reports. We can have daily reports. We can have weekly reports, and we can also send out these reports to the client to see that so many emails get blocked or passed. Now, the interesting thing is that even like a small firm of like about 10 people, we noticed they have like something like a 2,000 email filter out spam every day. That's a huge amount that these people, they don't have to go look at the email and then save and then delete them out. And that saved them a lot of time just not having to go through,
That's what
because
I was going to say.
time is money for attorneys, most of them at least.
Yeah,
That's
every
exactly
six
what I was going
minutes
to
they're billing,
say.
right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to ask next. I'm like, because they have plenty of stuff to worry about already, and having more passwords, alerts, all that is a lot to keep track of. So
Yeah.
this happens a lot quietly behind the scenes.
Yes. The cool thing about all these systems is that unless there is something major that happens, the attorneys or like the people working in the law firms, they're not aware of any of it. Just like once in a while, they may get a report say, look, we got like 3,502 emails blocked this week. So they just have like some statistic, but nothing they have to worry about. The cool thing is that if something happens, we get notifications as like 2B1 gets notification for the clients. So there is something that goes wrong, we will be the first one knowing about it, whether it is a virus or something else. And then we can review it first. And then if we have any question, we can contact the clients and say, oh, we received this specific alert where you're trying to install something, or it's actually a real malicious attack. And so we're trying to minimize the time that attorneys and their staff they have to waste on cybersecurity, while we are taking care of making sure that their systems are safe.
Nice. Well, Mark did bring up something that I wanted to bring up myself, the role of the employees or the human side of it, right? And training. So, where does the employee's responsibility begin? You did touch on that a bit, Mark. But even with very strong technology working in the background, the human side still matters. So, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see that employees make that
Sure.
technology cannot always prevent?
The the most common mistake is overconfidence. They say, "Well, I'm paying somebody, or I have an IT department, so I don't have to worry about this. Somebody else is dealing with it."
Ah,
Cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility, and we all have to stay vigilant. We all have to stay on top of things. If something doesn't feel right, then verify it. So, inside your Outlook client, you have a report phishing or a report spam button, right? You
yes.
can use that even if you're not sure. It's better to click on the button and say, let's have my IT guys or my managed service provider like 2B1, let's have these guys take a look at this and they can help me triage, and you can have a conversation about why I felt it and was it or is it not. And as Paolo mentioned, you can have a whitelist or a blacklist or type of updates to make sure that we let emails through that should be coming through, or block the guy or the gal that's sending malicious or time wasting material. Uh, and it's just, I can't tell you how many business owners I've spoken to that told me, well, I paid for the appliance, or I have a service, or I have an IT department, or I have a managed service provider. I thought since I was writing this check every month that everything was just taken care of. I was living in the land of rainbows and gumdrops and unicorns. And the reality is even with that, human beings are still part of the defense. Human beings are always going to be the weakest link, and the link that needs to be constantly trained and updated, especially in a legal environment when you're dealing with such important information, regardless of the field of practice or the scope of what you do. That information is important. Your people are important, and you need to make sure you take the necessary steps to train them and keep them abreast of the latest challenges, because the world is a very dynamic place. It is not a static environment.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. You gave away my gold nugget. So at the end of all of our podcasts, just so our listeners, viewers can know, we always want to give what I like to call, or what we like to call, a gold nugget. So something simple and practical that you guys can use right away, and that's free. So the habit I was gonna bring up was, to report the phishing or spam instead of just deleting it, right? And why is that better to report it than just like, oh, I see it, I could tell it's fishy, let me just delete it, you know? But I think it's
Yeah,
better
so
if
the
you
reason why
report
that's
it.
important is because you train your system. The good guys and the good systems and the good AI also needs input. And the garbage in, garbage out. I'm sure you guys have heard that phrase before. The more quality of an input you put into the system, the better quality results you get on the other side. And so when something does come through, because there is no email filter that is 100%, that doesn't
Right.
exist. Even if it's 99.9%, that still means 1 out of 1,000 emails is going to get through. And if you're getting 3,000 emails a day hitting your account, that means 3 emails are going to slip through that filter, right? So you need
Ah,
to know how to identify them.
okay, perfect. See, so you heard it, you guys. Don't just delete the email, even if you can. You're smart and you caught it. Report it. Always report the spam or report phishing. Okay, let's see. Um, so Paulo, if someone emails asking for a wire transfer, login information, or sensitive client data, what are you gonna do?
You need to pick up the phone and double check with the one who sent you email that is actually is happening. This has already happened to a couple of clients of us where they got like an email say that the client has changed the account number where that should be sent, and there were some issues after that.
And Mark, after you verified it, what are you gonna do? You just gonna delete the email?
So, well, if you verify then it's legit, you process it
Right,
as a
but if it's
normal
not,
standard business operating procedure. But if it is a malicious email, then you click on that report phishing button, and that will also help inform everybody else in your office that might receive the email from the same person. Because what if your accounts payable department has 3 people? You don't want to block her from the other 2 as well.
right? So, what would you guys say to a law firm listening to this and thinking, oh, we're too small for that.
Yeah.
Hackers don't care about us. What would you say to them?
Think again.
I would relate a personal story. So prior to me joining Acronis, I was a small business owner. I owned a technology service provider company very similar to 2B1. I would consider ourselves a small medium business. We had 18 employees, $6 million in revenue. I thought I was a great thing going, and I got hit by ransomware. My company got hit by ransomware. And it was because we had some practices that were not being executed like we thought they were. We were complacent. We didn't review things. We didn't have an outside security partner reviewing and triple checking just to make sure that all those I's were dotted and T's were crossed, and nobody snuck in something in the fine print, to borrow a legal term. And so there is no such thing as being too small. That is not accurate or modern best practice thinking.
Okay, so takeaways. AI is not only being used to create new threats. The good guys got it, and you guys heard how we're fighting back. It's also your responsibility. And let's see, Paula, before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add for the firms listening?
Yes, I think that cybersecurity is an important topic. We do have a lot of very good tools that can help everybody's security, whether it's training or like technology. If you have any question, give us a call, and then we can discuss about your specific needs. But we do have a complete set of solutions, pretty much for everybody, to make sure that you're safe as possible, at least from hackers. Also, in hopefully internal people as well.
So thank you, Paulo, and thank you again, Mark, for joining us on our first episode, our very first episode. I think you helped a lot of people that are listening, and we hope that this conversation helped make defensive AI feel a little less mysterious and gave everyone a clearer picture of how the good guys are using AI to protect law firms every day. So
Very
we'll
good.
see you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sally.
We're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.